It is indeed my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce our speakers tonight, Germ and Beth Stubbs. Germ, well, mention that name to any Chattanoogan and you'll quickly learn about a man that has left an indelible impression. A 44-year engineering career, service on boards and leadership positions for hospitals, education, blood support services, Boy Scouts, JCs, the Salvation Army, Junior Achievement, a U.S. Air Force veteran, and well, you get my drift. The list goes on and on. As a pediatrician, I, though, really admire his efforts to build Camp Discovery for disadvantaged and physically and mentally challenged. He also spearheaded a $7 million campaign to raise funds for Orange Grove Center, a school for the mentally challenged. John joined Rotary in 1976, and as Mark would say, when some of you were not even born, and has since served in many roles. He is passionate about our commitment to eradicate polio and served as chair of Rotary's $200 million challenge. And when we met that challenge, he said, well, we'll celebrate this milestone, but it doesn't mean that we'll stop raising money or spreading the word about polio eradication. And yes, that's what we're doing right now. John served as president of RI 2016-2017 and currently serves as the chair of the Rotary Foundation Board of Trustees. John and his lovely wife, Judy, live in Chattanooga and are blessed with 4 children and 6 grandchildren. Joining Beth this evening is a lady whose elegant act of throwing off her jacket last night will be very well remembered, past District Governor Beth Stubbs. Beth has served Rotary as an assistant governor, district governor, and District Rotary Foundation Chair for District 6780. Beth has attended 20 international conventions. Now, this was given to me, so I'm not giving her age out, but you do the math. A National Immunization Day in India, and made heart-to-heart visits to Mexico. As a CPA, Beth worked with nonprofits and is a member of Church Street United Methodist Church. She and her husband, Tony, are blessed with 3 children and 3 grandchildren. Beth has been selected to serve as the Director of Rotary International for Zones 3031 beginning July 1, 2023. So please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Germ and Beth Stubbs.
You want to let them go early?
Yeah.
We could do that, but I think they expect us to talk a little bit.
But we're standing between them and drinking.
I know. And I've been there with them, and I am there with them now.
It's not a good place to be, is it?
No. No.
Well, since they want us to say something, since we don't know what we're going to say, you've been involved with Rotary, and I'm not going to say how many years.
31.
Okay. Now you know how old she is. But, you know, over the years, we have seen giving to the Rotary Foundation fairly stagnant, not increasing a whole lot on an annualized basis. But yet we see more grants, more needs, more people that have toured the communities and said, you know, we need to do something about that. Your passion has always been the Rotary Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Won't you give me your thoughts about what your feelings are about people and how come our giving has not kept up with the needs?
Okay. You know, in 2013, we changed the way we do grants. And we put the administration of the grants down to the district level. Prior to that, what we now call global grants were called humanitarian grants, and you applied directly to the Rotary Foundation. So when this change came about, I really feel like that we had a long learning curve because we now had to make our own applications for global grants, administer those. We did send those to the Rotary Foundation for approval, but the method of doing that changed entirely. And so I feel like we had a learning curve between grant activity at the beginning because we were learning how to do grants again in a different way, and therefore we didn't have the need for the funds. But now we are 8 years down the road, and we have seen training after training after training to try to develop all those wonderful grants, and people are now asking for that money, and I don't think they were asking for it before. So now that we have a bigger demand, I think that we have to get the word out that if we want to continue on this trajectory upward of program expenses for grants, then we must have more money.
Well, you know that the Rotary Foundation is kind of unique in that it's the only foundation I know of where the money is given by Rotarians, the projects are identified by Rotarians, and the stewardship is by Rotarians. So how do we get the annual programs fund increasing to meet the demands? Because the funds, half the money comes back 3 years later, so how do we get that done? I mean, we're going to lock these doors and not let them out of here till we get their money, or what are we going to do?
Well, now that's an idea. Well, I've seen the trustees make a few changes here and there to make it maybe
Don't blame it on the trustees now.
Some of us
Don't-
say that
don't
you
go
made
there.
it a little harder.
Mark objects to being blamed for this.
But everything that I've seen that the trustees did in that regard made total sense.
Oh,
Like
that's
when
okay then.
Well, you know, you said we had to do this sustainability thing. Well, that makes sense to everyone, doesn't it? That when you give a grant to someone and they put this project into effect, and you go back there and check in a few years that they're now not using the ovens that you gave them as doorstops. You want that project to live on beyond the time when you give them the keys to the project and say it's now yours. So I think that we have done a lot of things. They're going to continue to be adjustments and adaptations for grants to make us good stewards. We have to be good stewards because when we ask people to give to the Rotary Foundation, we are asking them blindly to trust us with their funds. And that's so important that we do that stewardship step of maintaining very good control over the funds.
But you know, we've got about 360 president-elects here. What can they do to help?
Okay.
You know this is all made up, don't you?
Yep. So at the club level, what can you do? Well, there are a lot of things you can do. You can talk about the foundation. That's a big thing. It's just that you talk about it frequently and tell people the benefits of giving to the Rotary Foundation. And as John said, it's so important for us to realize that we're giving money to ourselves. We're not giving the money to somebody else. Like he said, the Rotarians plan it, spend it, they give it. It's all within us. So what better arrangement could we have when you give money to your church? Do you get to decide where it's spent? No, the finance committee decides where it's spent. When you give money to United Way, do you get to decide where it's spent? No, the allocations committee decides that. But in Rotary, we are deciding that. And so to me, there's no better opportunity for us than to give to ourselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But you didn't tell them what they could do.
Oh. Okay. So you can talk about it at your club. And then when people do give and they are generous, you must recognize them. You must treat them with kind hearts and say thank you for giving. So if you are a new Paul Harris Fellow, if you're a new major donor, you really need to emphasize the generosity of the person who's giving those funds, because they don't have to. We know that, right? But we would like them to, because again, the more we give, the more we can do. And so as presidents, I always say, as the president goes, the club goes. And so if you're going to be generous to the Rotary Foundation, it will be much easier to ask your club members to be generous, won't it? So just keep that in mind and ask your foundation chair. Please create a foundation chair if you don't have one in your club, and ask them to bring programs and educate your members on what the foundation is doing. It's much more complicated than just grants. There's much more to the Rotary Foundation.
This might be one of those cases where they lead by example, that they give their contribution first before they ask anybody else to give, because if you lead by example, you got more people that'll follow you.
And should we tell the district governor-elects that they can find a report that says whether the officers are giving or not? Let's don't tell them.
Let's don't tell them that.
Okay. So you want me to talk about our district? People are always talking about our district.
No, I didn't ask you a question yet.
Okay.
But go ahead.
Well, of course, we have this man in our district. And usually I say that to people when they say that we're a really great district. And I say, well, you know, we have John Germ. And they go, oh, yeah, yes, I get that. Because he is a believer in giving. And so when I got more involved in Rotary years ago, we began having these summer seminars. They call them different things now. We call them Vibrant Club Workshops now. And we went to these seminars and we learned more about the foundation. And an expectation was set with us that we would give to the Rotary Foundation, because there were all these programs that these giving would do for us. And so what we do in our district, if you want to copy us, we would love it. But we do everything that we can do to promote the Rotary Foundation in our district. So we have the Vibrant Club workshops. We have foundation dinners where we recognize our major donors, our Paul Harris Societies, our AKS members, anyone like that. We have every event. We have DTA. We have DTT.
Wait a minute, you have what?
District Training Assembly.
Oh, okay.
And district team training, where we talk about our goals. Our governor sets a citation goal for district governor that's for foundation giving, and the one that you do when you put your goals in to Rotary for the Rotary citation. So we do everything, and we do it consistently and every year, don't we, Debbie? Okay. So that's what we do. We're continuous, we're consistent, and we have expectations. We even ask when new members come into the club during the orientation, we say, we expect you to give the $100 to the Rotary Foundation. Who's been through one of my member orientations? No? Okay. It's an expectation, and so we don't know how else to do it.
Well, I think the fact that it's their part of being responsibility of being a Rotarian. And the fact that it is expected, it becomes tradition. And when it becomes tradition, then everybody wants to be part of the team. And I think that's what's helped us throughout the years.
And, you know, some of our districts probably in here do the Star Club, and our district started that, some form of it. Now, it may have started somewhere else, but we started our form of it, and that is where you give $100 per capita per club member for the year, and we give that award. We're very cognizant of awards in our district, and that's that recognition piece that is so important.
But we do take more
Take
than
more.
100.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yes, our district averages about $180 per person in annual fund giving.
You know, for years I've said there's 9 letters that is the key to success to fundraising and to membership. Anybody want to guess what they are?
Ask, ask, ask.
How did you know that?
I'm in John Germ's district. Have you ever?
You know, everybody in this room was asked to be a Rotarian. If you don't ask someone else, how are we going to grow and how are we going to expand our base? Somebody trusted you, why don't you trust somebody else to be a Rotarian? So that's one of your goals that you should be setting this year. Another one should be that to try to do your best to increase the giving within each of your clubs. And if you don't ask people for money, I'll guarantee you they won't volunteer it. So you've got to ask. And that's what makes a successful club, and that's what makes a successful district. So,
Okay, I'm going to ask you a fun question. Is that okay?
no. It's not my time. I'm going to filibuster.
Ask me
I'm
some
going
more?
to filibuster this thing until you have to answer all the questions. But you go ahead.
Okay. So, what were you doing in an Elvis costume a few years ago?
Well,
You're just glad I don't have the video, right?
very glad.
I do have the video.
Oh, you do?
We're not going to play it.
Thank you. We had a district governor who is unfortunately no longer with us. Her name was Carol LaRue. And when you go to Anaheim or San Diego, or now then it's going to be Orlando for your training, they always have skits. And it's kind of a fun night to where you can go and let loose and everything. So she wanted to do this at a district conference. And she got Karen Wentz and Ronna Poon to do Sonny and Cher. Now,
He's here somewhere, I think.
huh?
I think he's here somewhere. Ron, are you here?
I don't think so.
I thought he was somewhere.
We'd have seen him or heard him by now. But Ron was Cher. And Karen was Sonny, obviously. So they asked me to be Elvis. So we went and bought Elvis costume. And I can't sing worth a fiddle. But I did go get some scarves that had been signed by Elvis Presley. So we got out there and did our thing and had a lot of fun. People got excited with it. But let people know that you can be a person. It don't make any difference what your title is. Just be one of the people. And that's how you're going to build this relationship.
Have you still got that wig?
Yes?
It was bad.
No, I don't. I threw that thing away. But I did find a picture the other day, and I asked Judy, where did we get this picture from? And unfortunately, we still have a picture.
And I have a
But
video.
it was fun, and you remember how Elvis used to get out there and act like he was hot and sweaty and throw the scarves out? Well, I threw out about a dozen scarves and made a lot of friends.
Okay, I had to just do that because
Thanks a lot.
you're welcome. All right, now I'm going to ask you a
Well,
serious
you
question.
got notes.
Well, yes.
Oh,
So I know you're a Arch Club Society member.
yes.
Why'd you decide to do that?
Got mad at my kids and told them we was going to give their inheritance away.
Has anyone been in that situation where you were mad at your kids? Okay, AKS. Okay.
No, well, Judy and I did tell our children we were going to do this, and we're proud of our kids. And they said that we've got good jobs, we've got homes, we got families, you've done what you can do, you do what you want to with your money. So we're giving part of it to the Arts Clubs, to the Rotary Foundation, because I know the good that it does and the income off of it is what it does. But part of it comes back to the district as part of share. So district does get some of the income off of that over the period of time. So that helps continue the feed the district and get more grants and everything. So that's why I did it.
Well, I want you to know that I did it because you did it.
All right.
So you were my encourager.
Well, thank you. Tony probably had something to say about that, didn't
Tony had a lot to say about it. And we told our family that we were doing that, and that that was, when you've been in Rotary 31 years, Rotary is part of your life, it's part of your heart. And so you want to give part of your life to Rotary. And so we decided to do that the year I was governor. And, we had 5 or 6 people
right.
from 6780 that also made that commitment. And so it's been, I've enjoyed watching what it has done in annual fund, because I gave mine to annual fund over a series of years. And I've enjoyed watching the more district grants that we could do, more global grants that we could do. And so when you can watch it at work, there's also, putting it in the endowment, and then it's going to be there forever. The earnings just continue on forever, and you can have a legacy.
As long as Mark and Larry don't spend it all, it'll be there forever.
Is Mark going to spend it all?
No, Mark's not going to spend it all. Mark wants to say something. Go ahead, Mark. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, so we've been silly and we've been serious, and this is a really serious question.
Okay.
So I read that last week there were some polio workers that were killed. And I want people to understand how serious this business is of eradicating polio. Do you have any idea the number of people who have been killed giving the drops?
Over the life of this campaign, over 200. We give money to help eradicate children because that's Rotary's priority program. Not eradicate children. I think we ought to eradicate the virus. No, I was trying to get their attention. This way they pay attention, see? If I'd have said eradicate the virus, they'd say, well, that's just something you talk about all the time. But if you eradicate people that pay attention, because they're going to say, he messed up, he messed up. But, when you stop and think, and this happened in Afghanistan, and if you stop and think about that, we give a little money. It goes to WHO and to UNICEF, and we give some to purchase vaccine with. But these people are out there going door to door, and even though they've got protection, they get shot. And there was a few years ago that a lady got killed, her sister turned around and volunteered to finish what she was doing with that going door to door. So let's think about that. Yes, we're saving children, but hopefully we can get this over with and we'll save other lives at the same time. And we are down to one case for 2022, and that's in Afghanistan. Pakistan has not had a case since January of 21. Rotary has been the leader in this campaign since it started. Rotary started it in the Philippines in 1979 and has continued with it. And one of the beautiful things about all of that is that we can see the progress. It's measurable. We know how many cases we have. But we also know that this wild polio virus is popping up very frequently now, but Nigeria's going back down again on the wild polio virus. Vaccine-derived virus. And so we've got to keep it going. We do about 450 million children a year, and that's a lot of children. It costs $900 million to do that. And I'm sorry I missed part of Larry's speech today, but I was asked to attend the Rotary Club of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Now, obviously, I did that virtually, but there was a lady that had made a bequest to the Rotary Foundation in Toronto. 1 million Canadian dollars. She had had polio when she was 4 years old. That equates to about $811,000 and some odd dollars, that, with a stipulation it go to the Rotary Foundation to eradicate polio. Those are the stories that you like to hear about people that have done things like that. But you got to remember these people that get killed. We're sitting in a nice, comfortable facility. And yes, we're going to give some more money to the polio campaign, because if we do $50 million, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation will do $100 million. They've never done that for anybody before. So we've got a job to finish. But let's be thankful that we do have volunteers that are willing to stake their life in order to help save lives.
What year did we start the Gates match? And can you recall those conversations about doing that for these people here?
I recall them very well. It was November of 2007, and we had been working with the Gates people for several years. Bob Scott and Jim Lacey and several other people have been working with the Gates people. And they wired $100 million to the Rotary Foundation. And there was 2 stipulations. This was November 2007. First stipulation is that we had to spend that money by December the 31st of 2008. Now, if I gave each one of y'all $100 million, and the first thing you had to do was spend it within a year, that'd be a tough job unless you were working with polio, and it's not tough when you're trying to do that. Second stipulation was that they wanted us to raise $100 million by June the 30th of 2010. And Bob Scott and some of them looked around, and I was in the wrong place at the right time. Because you never say no to Rotary. So I said, why not? We can do that. My father had polio. He was 50-something years old when he got polio. And they told him he had never walked. And he's German. He said yes, he would, and he did. He did have one leg shorter, littler than the other. But my mother took a old steel iron. My daddy said, I want you to take that iron, tie a rope around it, and then tie one around my leg so that the iron never touches the floor. And that's how he raised his leg all the time in order to learn to walk again. So it means something to me for that reason, but I guess all of us have had experiences with the person next door that had polio, or we know somebody that has had polio, and we know we have a vaccine that can stop that. So that's what we need to be doing and everything. So we accepted the challenge. And by the way, they said it is not a challenge. We infringed on that right and made it a challenge. They didn't want it to be a campaign, but we said it was a campaign. And what else was it? A duck's a duck, you know. Hell, if it's a campaign, it's a campaign if you're raising money. So we were about halfway through, and the Gates Foundation said, if you'll do another 100 and go to 2012, we'll give you another 100. You guys were so successful that we reached it before June of 2012, and the Gates Foundation gave us another $50 million that we only had to match 10 with. So we're still trying to work with them. We still have an agreement with the Gates Foundation, as you know, that if we do 50 million, they do 100. We did make it last year, even with the circumstances of COVID and everything else. We did make it last year. And we got the 100 million in January. We've already spent 50 million of that to WHO and to UNICEF. The foundations agree we'll spend another 50 million in June. So we just kind of keep working at it. We are negotiating with the Gates Foundation to extend this through 2026, which is the time that we believe we will have eradicated polio from the face of the earth.
So Larry talked about that the Rotary Foundation has received about $3.2 million in the Ukraine effort for disaster relief. So can people apply for that money?
Depends on where you live.
Okay. What if you live in the 5 bordering states?
That's a good question. Yes, you can, and we have, the trustees acted very quickly, and we do have disaster relief grants set up for Ukraine. Actually, we never expected to get $3.2 million. We didn't know what we was going to get, and we said we're going to terminate this on June the 30th. Well, I'm going to go to the trustees and suggest we're not going to terminate it on June the 30th because we will not have been able to reach all of those refugees by then. But we limited the grants to $25,000, which is normal disaster relief grant. We changed that to $50,000. You can apply there's 5 districts surrounding Ukraine. So you can apply, those districts can apply for a grant. They can also work with other districts around the world in order to apply for a grant, but it has to go, the funds have to go into one of those 5 districts. So we do not put any money into Ukraine, nor do we put any money into Russia. And although we have a Rotary Club in Russia, and it is still functioning. So, but we don't put any money into there because who knows what's going to happen over there. As a result of some conversations that took place here yesterday, and a lady that's an incoming director, Pat Merriweather, who is in the health business, and she came up with a medical supply group. And she put together 5 districts in the United States to take this equipment, get free transportation, so we, tomorrow, hopefully, we will sign off on a $250,000 grant to get this medical equipment into those countries to supply medical supplies for there. So we call that a combined $50,000 grant, Mark. So we've got to get this money to where it's used. People do not give money to the Rotary Foundation to sit in a bank account and build up your DDF or anything else. They give the money for humanitarian and educational purposes, and that's what it should be used for. So we're going to work on that. We're going to go to the trustees in April. We're meeting right after the Council of Legislation, and we'll be asking them to extend the date because the needs are there and we need to be proactive.
Larry Lunsford brought up the programs of
Hey.
scale. Are we over time?
We got 2 minutes, and you can't. What's your next question, right quick?
Can you tell them what the program of scale that he said was started with 2 million, then 2 million more came, and then 6 million? What is that program in Malawi?
Well, if he said that.
What is it?
How do I get out of this gracefully since he's one of my trustees? The program of scale was started several years ago, but we only did the first project this last year. We had 79 applications from districts to do the program of scale. Program of scale because we said that the Rotary Foundation would put up $2 million, but we're asking you to put up at least $2 million to match that over a 3 or 5 year program. So it's in Zambia. It has to do with malaria. The Rotary Foundation had selected this partnership with World Vision, the Gates Foundation, and the Malaria Foundation in Zambia, and the Rotarians there, and the Rotarians with Federal Way in Seattle, Washington. The Gates Foundation has put up $2 million, and then World Vision is putting up $2 million, so that $2 million becomes $6 million. So that's why it's called a program of scale. We will be going to the trustees in April for our second program of scale, and it is in the child and maternal health in Nigeria. They have a high incidence of mortality for babies and mothers there because of the poor health conditions. So we will be going with them. It's another $2 million. This one's going to be definitely at least a 5-year program, and they have partners with the German government and their local people in Australia who's putting in birthing kits and stuff. So that'll be a $4.2 million project.
Thank you for that. I didn't know we were on a time frame, but evidently we are. So I guess
Well, they just said we're supposed to be through by 8 o'clock.
Oh, they did?
Well,
Linda said that?
not in Central Time. How many is in here in Central Time?
And I guess they want a drink.
Hey, listen, thank y'all for what you're doing in your communities, and thank you for what you're doing globally. Rotary is definitely making a difference in the world, and you as leaders in your clubs can make a difference in your community and globally. So go get those members and go get that money.
And thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
I want to thank you for your many, many years of leadership on the foundation. I love you.